what I'm going to do right now is just jump a little bit ahead to show you his walk cycle. And then I'll explain why there's this many keyframes, because I used a lot of easing in and easing out, but in a way so that I know a lot of people email me asking me, how do I get it to ease in and then ease out and make it feel and look fluid. Here's his walk cycle. I believe, yeah, I've changed it to 6 frames per second just because of the delay, so you can actually see each frame. But you'll notice the hair. Well, actually, this is a movie clip. Let me. The hair is all the hair is in movie clips. You'll see the hair bounce up and down. Get the basic idea. Now the reason. Oops, sorry. I'm going to just sort of start fresh with this hair just to rebuild it and show you what I did. Okay, here's the initial hair shape. Let me grab the other state of it, which I used the arrow and just pushed and pulled it into this position. Sorry, I'm jumping. Okay. All right, so you can see the 2 different states of this hair, and then again, just applied a basic shape tween. Yes, I can give you examples of Flash that's been used for broadcast. One is called Home Movies, that's on Cartoon Network. It's been on for 3 or 4 seasons. It started off in actually an old DOS dinosaur program called Animator Pro. Autodesk used to make it, no longer does. And I was the art director at the time. We did the first 5 episodes, and then we decided Flash 4 was the way to go, and we figured out how to sort of go from Flash 4 via QuickTime or AVI files to the Avid, our video editor. And once we realized that it could be done, we just completely revamped our whole production process and just started using Flash for Home Movies. And so that's why, I don't know if any of you are Home Movies fans or even know what I'm talking about. The first 5 episodes look distinctly different than the later episodes, the last 3 seasons, I believe. And we built huge libraries of characters in Flash. And anyway, let me get back to this hair. What I did was, obviously, like I said, I created a second keyframe and kind of with the arrow tool pulled it around so it would bend. Then what I'll do is I'll go back. Since this is going to loop, I want to copy first frame and then paste it into frame 20 and apply the motion tween again from shape 10. I'm sorry, shape tween, Chris's first day. Now when you play this back, it's going to look, let me change the frame rate from 24 is just a little bit too high for this presentation. Go back to 6. Let me make sure it'll loop. I've never used Disney Animation Studio. Now we have our basic loop, the hair is bouncing, but it's a little bit too stiff. It looks like a tween. Nothing bad about that, but I don't particularly, I think it's a little distracting when things look like tweens, because it looks like, oh, I know how he did that. So what I like to do is just use the in and out feature, but there's a little trick to this. If I want to ease in here and then ease out here, there's going to be a noticeable little jerk in the animation. You can see it when it reaches the top, boom, it sort of slaps back down again. I kind of wanted more of a wavy, elasticy kind of a thing. So what I really want to do is from frame 1 ease in and then ease out before I get to frame 10. And I have found that if I just create a keyframe in the middle and then say ease out, there's still a little bit, I don't know if anyone's ever tried this or noticed it, there's still a little bit of a jerk. So what I usually do about 2/3 of the way down, in between the first keyframe and the 10th keyframe, I'll create another keyframe. And this is the one I apply an ease out command to. And then the big trick thing here is take this frame and drag it to the middle. There's something that happens mathematically that smooths all these frames out so that it's a very elegant motion. And I apply this to just about everything that I want to ease in and then ease out again. What does ease really do by definition? What it does is if you're going to ease in to something, it creates more frames. Not more frames, but what it does is it creates smaller increments in the movement. And then gradually increases those movements to the last frame. So you actually, let me actually show you with a simple object what ease in does, a better example of it. I'm just going to make a basic shape. And I'm going to create another keyframe down the line here. This should be able to show you. And then I'm going to move this shape across the stage. And then I'm just going to apply a shape tween. As you can see now, it moves at the same rate throughout. If I select the first frame and say ease in, it's going to start off slow and get fast. And the opposite is true for ease out. It'll start off fast and then slow down gradually. All right, so let me get back to this hair thing. So as you can see, that's my little trick for easing in and easing out. Now for frame 10, I'm going to actually finish this, and I want to ease back in on frame 10. Again, go like 2/3 of the way down this little section, ease out, and then drag this around to the middle. It really works well. So you get this real flowy thing. This character you can see he's up there on my site at mudbubble.com if you want to just take a quick look at what it looks like at 24 frames per second. All right, let me get back to this. Let me see. I'm going to actually jump a little bit ahead to his walk cycle. Once I have all the elements built, and again, everything's on different frames. Actually, you know what? Pardon me. I'm going to show you his head turns first. This is the sort of 2.5D effect. The walk cycle I'll show you after this, as I want to just sort of touch on the edit center feature mainly for that. But you'll see, let me show you my timeline for this guy. It can get pretty big, but it's worth it. And with the layer folders, it's even more worth it. I'm going to just sort of play this out so you guys can all see the sort of effect I achieved with just basic motion tweens. And again, this is a pretty slow frame rate, just so I know the delay is about 2 or 3 seconds. But you can sort of see how, I mean, some people thought I did this in a 3D program, although I don't think it looks totally 3D. But it does look a little bit more than 2D and not quite 3D, so I call it 2.5D. And I'll show you how this was done. It's, again, simple shapes using simple motion tweens, but with a little bit of scale on some of the objects. It can be done. It just, it's kind of a cool way to create a slightly different look using Flash. Maybe what I'll do is copy these frames and start again in a new file. Is there a structure or pattern to use when grouping the symbols? I actually hardly ever group, believe it or not. I usually try to just keep them all, and again, it depends on the character, on how he's designed and how he's going to be animated. But for this guy, I've kept everything on its own layer, and I'm about to show you why that is. This little trick here in the upper right hand corner, I almost always take my timeline and sort of flatten it to shorter keyframes, just because I work with so many layers. Now what I'll do is I'll just try to do a basic head turn. Actually, we don't need, I'm not going to show you his body. I'm just going to concentrate on the head just to explain in detail as much as possible how I made this head turn. I'm going to extend my timeline by simply clicking and dragging it from top all the way down and hitting F5. I've somehow missed his eyes. That's not a problem. All right. What I'll do is this pupil, as you can see, is on its own layer, as well as this pupil. And that's because we're going to motion tween them. And you can only have one symbol per layer per motion tween. That's the main reason why everything's on its own layer. What I want to do is turn his head. So what I'm going to do is on frame 10, I'm just going to create, I'm going to select and highlight all these frames and hit F6. Now I've created a second keyframe for all of these symbols. And what I want to do, is, like I said, is turn his head. So what I'm going to do is select, there's a shadow symbol underneath his eye. With my, I can either move it around with my arrow or use the arrow keys. What I want to do is make the final head turn state. I'm not going to worry about the in-betweens because the motion tween is going to do that for me. So I'm going to just start selecting, making sure that my playhead marker is on frame 10. Move all these things over, but not all of them in the same direction. Now this is sort of where I can easily make mistakes as well. It's you don't really know until you've applied the motion tweens what it's going to look like, and then if it doesn't look right, you make the adjustments. The nose, this is, it'll be amazing how easy it is to make it look 3D when you just see this. I usually tilt the nose down a little bit, and I'll move it over. Sometimes, if you zoom in on it, grab your free transform tool, and instead of just rotating, you can actually skew it a bit. It sort of changes its shape, kind of twists it. If I hold down the control key, I can select all these shapes that make up the eye. Kind of move that over, as well as his eyebrows. Now, if this were truly a 3D object rotating, this eye, his left eye, would not remain at this scale. So what I do is I make it bigger. It wouldn't look like this anymore, because this sort of suggests that it's way back in perspective and possibly wrapping around the face, but now it's a little bit more, it's facing us a little bit more. So what I'll do is make it a little bit rounder and a little bit bigger. Maybe move the pupil around. Same with this eye, his other eye, just a little bit. A lot of little subtle details here. And now the other cool trick is to move what is behind him, not from right to left, but the opposite direction. Like say his brim. I'm going to move this way. His hat, since it really is just a shape on top of his head as I'm pulling it away and showing you, what I will do is kind of crush it in a little bit using again the free transform tool, and playing around with it. There's a lot of trial and error and pushing and pulling and playing around. Now first, I think at this point what I want to do is actually apply the motion tween just to see what is going on at this point. So what I'll do is select all these layers anywhere in between 1 and 10. I should be able to create a motion tween, and it applies it to all by right clicking. I did that kind of fast. I'm going to back up. I go fast sometimes. What I do is, instead of, I don't know, some people might say, oh, create motion tween for every single layer individually. If you just click the top layer and let it scroll all the way down, highlighting all those layers, and then right click over that black section, and then select Create Motion Tween. It does it for you. Now, if I scrub the timeline, we can sort of see we're getting there. The effect is close. I think the key there is making that eye on the right bigger. It just gives you the illusion of depth as he's turning his head. What I want to do also is returning my playhead back to frame 10. Is this head, the actual head shape doesn't really move that much, and it's kind of abstract to think that how can I make this look like it's turning. It's all an illusion, I think, if you just take it and skew it a little bit like this and then scrub. It just seems to look like it's turning. And again, these are all little tips that I just learned by experimenting, just going trial and error. And now I see I haven't done his ear. Let's do something with his ear. Maybe move it up. And maybe flatten it a little bit or skew it. Again, just trying to suggest an illusion. Hey, that works. What do you know? Now, another cool thing would be is if we take this ear, let's copy it. Let's try to show the other ear coming around that other side, just to really send the illusion home. I'm going to create another layer. I'm going to drop it down, make sure it's underneath everything. And I'll create a keyframe on my last keyframe here. This is going to be my final position for this ear. And I'm just going to paste it. And it is pasted underneath everything. Let me shut off all the layers, and except for the new ear layer. I'm going to just move it off to the side. Turn everything back on again. Okay. Now what I want to do is just sort of flip this ear. Modify, transform, flip horizontal. I have a keyboard shortcut made for this, Control H, because I find I'm flipping stuff all the time horizontally. What I'll do is I'll throw this, just a hint of it on the other side. Maybe scale it a little bit, maybe make it a little smaller so it appears like it's a little bit further back. Now, right now it's not animated, so when I get to that 10th frame, it just pops in there. What we want to do is just make it tween to reveal itself. What I'll do is select the keyframe it's in, move it back a little bit. It doesn't have to go to frame 1, because then we would see it all the time. And then go back to frame 10, create my last keyframe again, and then we go back again to the first keyframe of this ear, and I'll just use the arrow keys and just hide it just till it gets underneath there. And now right click, create motion tween. So now as his head comes around, so does his ear. Looks a little fast, so maybe we'll just push and pull these frames just to play with it a little. Maybe even apply a little easing out for the ear, since the rest of the head, we're gonna apply the easing and out to this head too. Again, it creates more of a softer kind of animation style. So you can sort of see. Let me sort of play this in a loop for you so you can get a sense of what we've done. Control. I'm going to loop the playback and just let it roll. I haven't touched the hair yet. But again, the same method. In fact, I will. Why not? Just very quickly. What I'll do. Take the hair. Now, I've sort of not explained something. You'll see here that the center point of this symbol, or the instance of this symbol, is all the way to the left. It's at its root, the root of the hair, and there's a reason for that. And I had done, what you want to do is, the reason for this is simply to hinge it. I'm sort of getting into my next little step here about using the edit center feature to hinge stuff. Can't see all the animation, the breeze is jumpy. Yeah, let me try to play it at 6 frames per second here, just so you can try to see it. Yeah, I see it is a little jumpy. Maybe I could, yeah, hold on. You know what I'll do? I'll just jog through it one frame at a time. I have my laptop up. I'm watching myself, and I can refresh. I'm sorry, I can jog along in one frame increments as the delay stops. Yeah, and yeah, on the splash screen of my site, you'll see it at 24 frames per second, the effect. Again, this is all simple shapes, simple motion tween. Um, and on the splash page, I make them look down. I make them look in a couple of different places. If we wanted to make them look down, maybe I'll just quickly do that. Or if you all feel you sort of understand this and want me to move on, I will. But moving down again, there's sort of a limit to how much you can push and pull this character to look in different ways. There's no way you could have him look completely 360 degrees around. Um, but what I'll do is, same thing, I'll create a whole bunch of keyframes. I'll extend my timeline a little longer, create some more keyframes, an ending point, a new ending point. Let's move the nose down. Let's select the eye. Let's move it down as well. And also, the pupil's on a different layer for a reason, so we can move that around independently of all the other symbols. Move this down. Move the pupil down. And if the front of his head's moving down, then a good way to sort of help that animation is to whatever's behind it to move it up. So his ears are sort of on a plane that's further behind his eyes and nose. So what I'm going to do is try to move the ears up a little bit. That'll help. And also the brim of his hat way back there would look like it's moving up. And I'm going to tweak the hat a little bit. Even this hair underneath this hat, I'll move up a little. And we would see the top of his head a little bit more, even though that doesn't really exist. There isn't really a top of his head. So what I'll do is move, and again, I'll explain the edit center trick very shortly. Move these down a little bit. It's all a little bit of, like I said, pushing and pulling with arrow keys, things like that. So now I think we're close. Let's just, again, apply a motion tween to everything. Boom. And I see that I didn't even move his eyebrows. Every little, what it is, it's just a lot of little things working together to create the illusion. And the other great thing about this technique is that this still keeps file sizes incredibly low. I think, yeah, we're at 5K here. I mean, it's just the head, but I think what's on my splash page is about 8K. That's everything, including the animation, which is why the whole idea of working with simple shapes really works.